How will you remember 2020? As the year a film from South Korea won the Academy Award.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
The year Harry and Meghan left the royal family.
We will firmly stand up for what we believe, and we will do everything that we can to play our part in building a better world.
Or maybe the year that Liverpool finally won the Premier League crown.
We believe you now, Jürgen. We believe you now.
This week, the Renaissance men look back at the best and worst of 2020.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
So relax, kick back, take your clothes off, and raise a glass to another fabulous year, the year that was 2020. It's the 2020 Stiffie Awards. And now, here's your host, Stuart Garrard.
Good evening and welcome to the first night of Stiffmas, where the Renaissance Men proudly present the 2020 Stiffie Awards, a 6-night extravaganza celebrating the best and worst that 2020 had to offer. It was mostly bad, let's be honest. Joining me on this auspicious occasion are my brothers Seddon, Mideon and James Midmeister Perkins.
Wow, thank you for the grand introduction. Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Hi, Mitch. I'm good. It's been a while since I've been able to say that, so I thought I'd make the most of it.
That is true. I did, I think the last show that I was on, I just dropped by on the off chance to say hello and ended up sticking around for like 20, 30 minutes. So, yeah.
You did.
It's good to be back to celebrate the good of 2020 because, you know, we will address the elephant in the room, which is COVID, of course. But, you know, there's been a lot to be positive about in a lot of aspects for this year. I think myself, along with quite a few other people, we've made the best of a bad situation. Again, something that will be addressed in the various awards that we have to elaborate on a bit later on.
Mm-hmm. It's good to have you, mate. As always, the Renaissance Men alumni. Mm-hmm. Good to have you back. And, you know, just to say this straight away, you are the boy who's had quite the 2020. So fair play to you.
That is true.
You are going great guns, and it's great to see. So,
thank you.
Yes, glad to have you on. Happy to speak to you, and well done you.
Thank you.
Seddon, I'll come to you. How are you, mate?
Oh, not bad, mate. I want to redress the balance because obviously we've got the most positive man in the world on here.
Yep. Oh, is he muted? He's muted. He's bloody muted. He's gone.
Where's he gone?
Disappeared into the ether.
He did. 2020 got him.
He's back.
You got to absorb.
Seddon, you disappeared for a good.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I wasn't muted or anything. I don't know what's happened there. Like, it just cut me out. But it's beautiful because I was just saying after the positivity of Midge, I described this year as a prize cunt of a year. Absolutely sucked. But you know, it's nice to know that we're going to end it with 6 days of stiffness. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to maintain that for 6 days, but I'll certainly give it my best shot.
If it does last for longer than 6 days, please consult a doctor.
Yeah, Seddon in the running for Cunt of the Year.
Oh, God, if I don't win this, it's the only thing I'm hoping for this year.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. We do have some listener nominations, and you may appear in some of them. So
I'll be disappointed if I didn't.
And Mid, how are you?
I'm good, but I'm disappointed you didn't get us paid, man. With the name like this, you didn't get us no Blue Chew sponsorship.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. The deal wasn't signed in time, I'm afraid.
I know, yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I can battle with Seddon to see who can be the most miserable. I think that's where the war's going on. Yeah. Depends what we're talking about, I suppose. I can be positive about some things, but you know, pretty negative about others. But, yeah, it's been a different year. Some things that haven't been terrible, like people keeping away, has been okay for me because I don't really like people. So stuff like that has been all right.
Same.
Yes, for the socially retarded amongst us, 2020 has been quite good, I suppose, in a way. You know, you kind of don't have to. You've been given a reason not to circulate with your friends and family.
Yeah,
so.
Perfect excuse not to see my mum. I've not seen her since last Christmas. It's been glorious.
Sorry, mate. I've seen her. She's doing fine.
You haven't seen her. You won't be fucking saying that if you did.
You can't see me.
Throwing so much shade at your mum. Harsh on that.
She's a former alumni as well as a podcaster. She is.
Yes,
Come on.
In fact, that's a good point. I need to ship her out a host badge, to be honest.
You'll turn up and she'll be like, what the hell is this?
I've got a spare one. I sent a couple. I'll take one round on Christmas, Boxing Day when I see her.
If you just send it away, that'd be great. A strange year 2020. Many highs and many lows, but we're going to explore a lot of them in various subjects on the 6 shows that you're going to have in your ears over the next 6 days leading up to Christmas.
Lucky you.
We all culminate on Christmas Day with the cunt of the year. It felt appropriate, to be honest. A day where we celebrate a cunt. Sorry, I went a bit religious there. Yeah. Well, you get the picture. Anyway, we're going to kick things off in style. And this might be a bit of a negative starting point, to be honest. I'm not sure how many highlights there were in the world of professional wrestling, but we're going to discuss 2 awards in this first evening's entertainment. And that is going to be, if I can get my notes in order, bear with me. Okay, we're going to celebrate the highs and lows of wrestling throughout 2020. What do you fancy? Should we start with the good or the bad?
Let's start with the bad. Get out of the way.
Okay.
Bad.
Okay. So, our first award is the Dalip Singh Award for Wrestling Pain. That's a Watchcast old school reference for you. And this is going to be our single moment of wrestling pain from 2020. And I am going to kick things off. And I'm just going to go quite simply. I thought it was such a disappointment that COVID ruined WrestleMania, and we got it from the Performance Center. It just was not the same. I don't know what you guys think.
I just want to say as well, like, I remember obviously when this happened about 15 years ago now. And I remember just thinking, they should have just waited till the summer. It would have been fine. It would have been much better to have a crowd there. And then I grossly underestimated the stupidity of the American public. More to elaborate on that in a future award relating to people in general. But yeah, it would have been. I think it would have been better if they had delayed it a little bit. I mean, it's been pretty good in terms of having some semblance of audience in the crowd. I think the Thunderdome stuff has been quite a nice addition, because it does give a little bit more grandeur to what's happening in the ring. The stuff around the ring at NXT has been quite good. Obviously they started off with the talent, and then they introduced the pods for some select fans to come in. So I think they should have delayed it, because it didn't have that grand feel to it, which they tried, but I can totally see why a lot of people just felt like it really didn't sit properly.
It's a huge shame, isn't it? Because it is the show of the year, and Rumble's always been my favourite pay-per-view, but WrestleMania is the big show, and it is the one that really everything is supposed to culminate at, and you need a crowd there for it. The only reason why this wouldn't have qualified for me is that card was shit. So it wouldn't have mattered for me whether it was in the Performance Centre or not.
Can't polish a turd, they said.
Yeah, and it was. I think where it was really impactful was things like Drew getting his moment and stuff like that. But yeah, that card would have been bollocks with a crowd there or not. So it wouldn't have done it for me.
It's one of those things as well. Like, I remember when Drew did win, we all said, he should lose it in the not too distant future, and then win it back where there is a crowd.
Get his moment at SummerSlam, I think he said. Yeah,
get his moment at SummerSlam, and now we've got to a point where he lost it, and now he's got it back, and there isn't a traditional crowd there. But still, I think that his second title win should have been when things are back to normal. Well,
He'll probably lose it and win it about 5 times before crowds are back to normal at this rate. So
Yeah, at this rate, yeah, the way the booking's been going. But yeah, the whole the whole thing with the feud with Randy Orton is a whole other kettle of fish. But yeah, I think the timings have been off. But I mean, you just have to look at the ratings from last week. You know, Raw especially is in the shitter right now. But hey ho, that's for a different.
I think. Sorry, Midge. I think the overriding thing for me is, you know, usually a WrestleMania, if the card is a bit shit, you can kind of get by on the pomp and pageantry. You know, the sparkly, shiny things can kind of just distract you to some regard. But we didn't even get that, so it kind of then just highlighted how shit the actual physical card was. You know, and it really did just shine a not particularly pleasant light on the event. And they split it over 2 nights, which was another way of doing it, and that was quite. I didn't mind that so much. I wouldn't mind if they kind of continued that when they go back to normal. But
than 7 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that because I think we got to a point where I think WrestleMania last year was the longest one, and it definitely felt like that, which was a shame because by the time you get to the main event, you want to still be in that mood, you know what I mean? But yeah, the two night thing I think would be great going forward. You know, I think as well it would be quite a nice for those actually in attendance. It would be quite nice as well because, you know, they can really make I know a lot of people obviously make a weekend out of it because, you know, you got SmackDown and then it was TakeOver, then Mania, then Raw, and obviously a lot of people who go get tickets for all of the events. But yeah, I think going forward it should be a 2-night thing because I was going through the network actually a few weeks ago and looking at some of the past WrestleManias and seeing like some of them, I think like the early 20s in terms of WrestleManias were like 2 hours 50 or like just pushing 3 hours, and I'm like, man, remember when WrestleMania was 3 hours and not 12?
Good old days.
Bring them back.
So that was my pick. Midge, what was your pick for the worst wrestling moment of the year?
Worst wrestling moment of the year for me. Again, I'm kind of pushing the boat out with this because it's not a single moment. It's kind of just a collective.
Okay. Well, yeah.
For me, the single worst thing about wrestling this year has just been Vince McMahon. I think he was in the running for our esteemed Grand Award. But it's one of those things that
most years
perpetually up for that award.
Yeah, I mean with most things, you have to move with the times. You know, we've adapted to life in 2020, not just because of COVID, but in terms of like the advancements of technology and the way that people think and the way that the world is perceived. Vince McMahon's still stuck in the 1980s. He just drags everything down, and the fact that this year we've had countless articles from wrestling journalists saying how he's high on this talent. 2 weeks later, their push has been derailed. I mean, look at Keith Lee. Brought to the main roster, and then a few weeks later, he's coming out in a dress, and he's got shite new music, and then on this past week on Raw, he lost in a handicap match to The Miz and John Morrison. Somebody as talented as Keith Lee should be pushed to the moon. I mean, you looked at how he was received at last year's Survivor Series when he came face to face with Roman. And that's just one example of.
I think you're misunderstanding Vince's booking there. This is a push. make them lose every match until the crowd gets so vocal and pissed off that they have to then actually give them the push. This is the Vince methodology.
Yeah, but it's really, really frustrating and tedious. And I know we've been pushing for it for so long, but he should just hand over the reins and get it to Trips. Like, Trips needs to. I feel like he can be. I mean, I know obviously there's some people who said this year as well. Some of the stuff with NXT has been a bit iffy at points, but Trips has a good track record, and you know he's he wouldn't be one to literally rewrite the entire show from scratch 5 minutes before they go on air. It's been painful, really painful in a lot of places. The only saving grace for that Vince would obviously take credit for is some of the great storylines on SmackDown, and obviously I know that Vince has to clear everything and give it the go ahead, but it wouldn't surprise me if something doesn't quite sit right with him, he would just change it in an instant and ruin the momentum of anyone involved. So I think Vince's booking choices, if we have to sort of nail it down a little bit further, but overall I just think Vince McMahon has dragged the whole product down. And I mean, obviously I'm someone who's very, very positive. And I still love wrestling. I know. And I love wrestling. I mean, this year I've been busy with lots of other things. And this has probably been the first year in about 10 years that I haven't, watched at least 90% of all WWE programming. There's been a lot of times where this year, for the past, 6 months, I'm pretty sure I've watched the occasional highlights package from Raw and from Raw. And
you've seen everything you need to, mate. It's just the same thing every week anyway. So
exactly, and then I watch the occasional SmackDown probably about once or twice a month. But to me, it's mainly just the pay-per-views, and it's a massive shame. And I have every hope that it will, WWE will return to its heights at some point in the future, but I just personally don't see that happening whilst Vince is around. So yeah, again, I kind of cheated a little bit with this.
No, that's a good one. It was a good one.
But Vince's booking choices in if we have to nail it specifically.
Okay, a good one. Mideon, what was your low point of wrestling from 2020? I assume there are many.
Yeah, my low point was the same as someone else's, so I'll probably switch it and go with something a little bit different. So my low point is probably all these shitty workers that everyone thinks are amazing. That's probably my low point. The example is all these newer wrestlers that people think are great. All they try and do is get their shit in, no matter what, whether the match makes sense or if it makes sense for them to do that move at that time. They don't care, as long as they get their fucking moves, they don't care. A recent example, I was watching, and it's really prevalent in NXT and AEW, the worst.
Yeah. It's an indie mentality there, isn't it? Yeah.
AEW is not so forgivable because they're supposed to be professionals. NXT is still kind of a training ground, so they're still learning. But in AEW especially, every week, I watch it every week, and you'll see someone, the opponent, work on a body part, mainly the leg or something like that, work on their leg, and then for the whole match, they're limping and shit like that. Or when they've got to do their moonsault or something, that's it, straight up on the rope, bang, moonsault. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
You see that a lot, don't you?
Yeah, and that is really pissing. They need to just go back and watch the whole Bret Hart back catalogue and actually learn how to work a match, because it pisses me off big time, as you can tell. But and another one that we spoke about loads and loads of times, and NXT are probably the worst for it, is the shitty million finishes. Yeah. If you hit it with a big move, that should be the end of the match, not the man's kicked out and then another 10 moves later he's finished. I know wrestling's staged, I know it's fake, but I like the matches to have a little bit of realism to them. Not total New Japan style, you don't have to work strong style, but everything you do, the main thing is everything you do in the ring has to make sense, and for a lot of people it doesn't. They just want to get their move in or something like that. Or it's how the bookers said, oh yeah, this is the finish, we're going to kick out of his finisher 10 times and then win the match or something. I just don't like that kind of style.
So would you say there's a lack of psychology, would you put it, or just realism? I don't know
so,
how you
yeah.
would kind of encapsulate that into a...
Obviously the wave of people who are working now, I don't think they were brought up wrestling the proper way. Yeah. Back in the day, it was totally different. Now you got all these wrestlers 10 a penny, training them. But the problem is the people who are training them are guilty of the same thing. So you got these wrestling schools by like Seth Rollins and all that kind of stuff. He's guilty of all this as well.
Just teaching bad habits, man.
Yeah. So, Jim Ross brought up a great point the other week that was in the news about all the guys huddling up outside to wait for the other guy to jump on him.
Yes,
it's ridiculous, mate. I agree with Jim Ross. It's just, it looks shit, and you don't want to be doing it. I mean, I don't agree with him shitting on it on live TV on their own program. But yeah, that's legendary. But yeah, I agree with what he was saying. You shouldn't have that spot in 10 matches during the night. Maybe use it once, not every single match. Come on.
Yeah.
Save it for the pay-per-views as well, things like that. That sort of mentality's gone, hasn't it? Where I guess years ago you'd have had it where in a big pay-per-view match they might not be quite so keen to disqualify it, and you might see a weapon used outside or the fight into the crowd. But now those sort of things are standard in matches, and I guess nothing's special anymore. So when people hit the finisher 25 times, there's nothing exciting or important about that anymore. But I mean, that's your indie mentality, isn't it? That's your Ring of Honor mentality brought into, I guess, more mainstream products. But
I can kind of see, like, in terms of the multiple finishes, I know that some wrestlers have, a small selection of signature moves or finishers. Like some have two different finishes. And I suppose you could count with, say, let's use Finn Balor as an example. The 1916 and the coup de grace are like I would say his two finishers. 1916 is more of a finisher now than a signature that it used to be, because he has put people away with the 1916. But like hitting a 1916 and then hitting a coup de grace, I think that's a nice sequence of events, because you can use one, which is an impact move, to set up the one that will put the finishing blow. But I totally agree. There's been so many kickouts, especially. Stuff where you kick out of someone's finisher should be, again, saved for the big pay-per-view events. You should have that year-long or even several year-long long-term storytelling where this is a finisher that has put every single person away, so that when that one person kicks out of that finisher, it's the very first time that's happened, or it hasn't happened for a long time, and then that will pop the crowd.
Yeah, I say it every single week. And I keep saying it every week until it happens. When Hangman Page kicks out of the One-Winged Angel, people are going to go crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, let's not forget, we live in a wrestling universe now where if it's a 24/7 title match, you don't even need to hit a finish. You just need to roll people up and it's a win. So,
yeah. What is R-Truth now? 47 times.
It's record breaking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's not offensive though, because they embrace it as silliness. R-Truth embraces it as a silliness.
Well, that title's been dumb since day one, and they know it. And it's fine. It's been up and down. I mean, there have been some.
When was it up?
There have been some funny moments. I mean, come on, there has been some moments where it was pretty fun to see some of the
gobbledygooker.
The gobbledygooker. To see some of the legends win it, and just dumb fun. It's one of those. It's that comedic relief, like in the middle of the show, which kind of you need that to find that balance. It's a difficult thing to balance, but there's been some great moments. There's been some really cringy moments, but you're never gonna please everyone with everything you do with that sort of idea, But
a man who may not have been pleased throughout the whole year is Seddon.
Oh yeah,
looking through your wrestling.
Probably the Vince McMahon booking. It was tough to pick a worst part of the year in a year where we had Raw Underground, the awful Retribution angle, the Lana Rusev Lashley.
That was this year.
Angle. Yep. Viking Raiders versus Street Profits in a bin with ninjas. Sheamus and Jeff Hardy, where Sheamus shamelessly picks up on his real life addiction problems. And let's not forget the shit fest that was Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin pouring dog food on each other. But
wait, was that Was the dog food stuff seriously 2020?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
it was.
It wasn't that long. Yeah.
Oh,
but yeah, the thing that took the biscuit for me, and it is the worst.
Drum roll.
And it's probably the thing that annoys me the most about wrestling and Vince McMahon was Goldberg beating the Fiend in Saudi Arabia. It encompasses everything that I find frustrating about Vince McMahon's booking, about WWE in general, where they really had captured lightning in a bottle with the Fiend. You had someone creatively reintroducing a whole new character. It got really over with the crowd. Now, don't get me wrong, I think they did make some mistakes in the booking of him before that, and they probably shouldn't have booked him into a title reign. But because ratings were dropping, and let's be honest, ratings were dropping because it was a strange world we're in, but more so because WWE had done such a bad job of writing all of their shows for so long and building stars that they brought back Goldberg for a 1 week pop, and because the ratings popped so much, they gave him the title, and then obviously that led into us having to put up with that right the way into Mania. One of the things that made Mania painful on that part was having to see him in a title match, and let's be honest, he couldn't even do his own moves when he come back, and it was embarrassing. But yeah, it's just terrible, and I think it's just a really bad way to treat one of your actual permanent full-time workers who put a lot of effort into getting himself over despite what they've done. So yeah, just a horrific moment in wrestling for me this year.
It's crazy to think as well, like amongst everything that's gone on in the world and the ratings drops and everything, that WWE have like had their best year in forever in terms of the money that they've received. Some of that was probably from that the Black Wednesday, as they call it, where loads and loads of talent were released. I think that was back in May now, something like that. But yeah, it's crazy with lowest ratings in history and people turning off the product, yet they still seem to sell an absolute shite ton of merch.
Well, as we say, we still watch it. I mean, I know we're apps, but something that like I bitterly hate 90% of the time in the WWE product. I think I went with 95% in the answer, but I still find myself watching the highlights. Although I'm finding myself watching the highlights less and less. I'm not watching pay-per-views anymore. I'll be there for the Rumble because I'll never miss one, but it's the pits as far as I'm concerned. And this isn't the Goldberg Fiend thing isn't a one-off. This has been coming for years. You talk about the Mania moments over the last few years and those bits where you say like the bits that pop the crowd. I've been sick of them wheeling out part-timers for years and years, and the problem is they're not building any new stars. You said about it earlier, Midge, about someone like a Keith Lee.
Well, you
can't build a star.
Oh, what was it?
How are you going to have Mania?
Taker? Exactly. Sorry. When Taker retired, like the final farewell, as they build it, last month. Even Taker said they need to build new stars. He wanted to put someone over on the way out. You could have. I mean, what you want to build?
Aleister Black would have been perfect.
Aleister Black as one of the top heels, having Aleister Black be put over by The Undertaker would have been perfect. Even to some degree, having The Fiend beat Taker, they could throw back to the fact that Bray Wyatt lost to Taker at Mania a few years ago, and have that last match. And it doesn't even need to be a long or overbooked match. It could be a cinematic match. It could be just a short match in the ring. Anything to put Wyatt over, or Aleister Black, or someone of that sort of ilk. They've missed a huge opportunity in that case. I mean, Seddon and I play a lot of Total Extreme Wrestling, and I've been booking like my version of WWE, and I've used the likes of John Cena and Edge to put over my younger talent like Pete Dunne and Bray Wyatt, just to the stuff that I would love to see in real life. Obviously, some things I've had to chop and change, but I want to see that kind of thing. Like, recently we had the official news yesterday as of recording that Ben Carter, one of the hottest prospects in wrestling, is coming to NXT UK. Like, I at this point it's hard to judge whether I would rather have him in the WWE brand or AEW. I mean, you said as well yesterday, Mid, in our private chat about AEW is dramatically oversaturated with talent. I mean, there's so many people. You look at like the results of AEW Dark.
Yeah, 24 matches, that sort of thing.
Yeah, 24 matches that roll across the screen when you're watching Dynamite, and 90% of the people on Dark I've never even heard of. It's pretty much only if some of the lower mid-card talent from Dynamite is on Dark, like Sean Spears or Lever Bates or Peter Avalon and Brandon Cutler and all of them. Like, but most of the time I look at the match and it's Bilbo Baggins versus John McClane, and I'm just like, all right, okay, fair enough. Like, two people that I don't really care about. I'm just using random names that popped into my head as an example.
It's a fight I'd like
slightly worried that Bilbo Baggins came into your head first of all.
I don't know why.
A fetish we've discussed. So thank you, boys. Let's just run through our final choices. So I went with WrestleMania from the Performance Center. Mid, I've put you down as a lack of realism / psychology.
Yeah, I forgot to say as well, my pick was Goldberg as well, but I thought
I was hoping when you said someone else of it, because I thought you'd hate that as much as I did.
Yeah. Seddon has gone with Goldberg beating The Fiend, and Midge went with Vince McMahon booking. We do have some listener submissions for this category. So just to state up front, thank you for everyone who has submitted stuff to us. Greatly appreciated. We will bring in your picks at the end of each kind of topic. So Chris Lacey has given us his Dalapsing Award, and he's gone with Taker's retirement at Survivor Series, which we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. That was pretty poor. Yeah, it was. That's a good pick, Chris. And I think Ben Wyatt of Asian Mania previously has picked, I think his was, Kota Ibushi losing at Wrestle Kingdom Night 1. That doesn't mean a great deal to me, but I'm sure it does to you boys. Was that a bad moment?
Yeah, it was disappointing.
It feels like longer than a year ago, though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
because they have their show in Jan. It feels like so long ago.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if just to talk about New Japan, that should go on the bad list, because it's not been great all year. If you've been keeping up,
the whole company.
Yeah, it's not been bad, but it's just been like middling. It's not been excellent like it was the year before and previous years.
Excellent. So thank you for that, Ben. Much appreciated. So we spoke about the bad. Let's end this first show on a positive note, and let's talk about our Dusty Rhodes Award for Wrestling Pleasure, our single moment of wrestling pleasure from 2020. And I'll go first. Obviously, we'll continue in the same order as we go on. I couldn't remember when NWA Power started. I don't think that matters particularly. And although my pick is NWA Power, I think it's more the fact that I've kind of, because WWE has been so bad, as we've kind of covered quite extensively in the previous topic, I've kind of had to go out and find my wrestling pleasure from elsewhere, and that's, as you know, and listeners to the Botchcast of old probably know that's outside my. That's not really my deal. That's not my bag. I tend to stick to the WWE, and that's kind of it. I've been forced to broaden my horizons. I've watched a lot of NWA stuff. I've partaken in the Impact. What was that stuff he was on about? Seddon?
Wrestle House.
That's it. I watched some of that, which was cool. I've watched some AEW, which I'm not a massive fan of, but. Yeah, for me, NWA Power has been my wrestling pleasure from this year. I think it's just although it has now pretty much ended, and we don't really know the future of it, but I just love the NWA product and the stuff they put out. It's always just kind of, I don't know, it feels like easy listening music. It's like easy listening wrestling for me. It's easy to consume. It's, it's good quality.
It's hugely nostalgic, we said as well, didn't we? It really does transport you back in time.
It does. It takes you back to that era of when wrestling was good and you did think it was real. And that is my single moment, if you like. NWA Power. And maybe broadly speaking, these companies outside of the WWE.
Fair.
Midge,
yes.
What you got for us?
So mine's kind of like a joint first. We're not doing like a top three for these ones. I know I'm
scandalous,
but who cares? It's
the man who did 45 honourable mentions in the last category.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. So for me, I'm going to start off with the WWE pleasure, because in a year of awful booking, and some of the things that they tried to do was fine in terms of the context of having to adapt to COVID. But for me, my favourite part of WWE this year has been Alexa Bliss joining the Firefly Funhouse. I think she's done some amazing work. I think she, in terms of her in-ring performance and her character development over the years, she's one of the best. She is like, that pure, the pure product of WWE. She had like nothing, obviously, before that. She came to the Performance Center as an athlete and as a gymnast, and she has just come on leaps and leaps and bounds. And she got to a point earlier this year where I was like, I don't know what they could do with her next. Like, she was starting to get a little bit stale in terms of her character. And then she joined with Nikki Cross, and that again just gave that little bit of freshness to her. And then when you had the Fiend and the Braun Strowman feud, and using her in the middle of that feud, again, long-term storytelling, taking it back to the mixed match challenge was really nice to see, and some good writing for once. And then having her fully turn into this crazy, wacky sort of Alice in Wonderland kind of character, and joining forces with Bray Wyatt was so cool to see, and added a whole new aspect to her and her performance, and made the Fiend feel even fresher than he already was. And I think she's done an amazing job with that character as well, especially her short match with Nikki Cross. But her performance in that, in terms of her acting, was really good. It wouldn't surprise me if she goes down the John Cena route in the future, and actually tries her hand at doing some proper acting. You know what I mean, in terms of in TV or movies. I would definitely see her as probably pursuing that.
Mandalorian season 3.
The Marine 10.
No, avoid the Marine. But no, I know that Sasha Banks was in the Mandalorian, wasn't she? So yeah, maybe. And on the flip side, outside of WWE and AEW, I've been watching quite a lot of Stardom this year. There's still quite a bit that I need to get back onto watching, because I've had my eye on Stardom for quite a while, and I've watched bits and bobs over the last few years. But then when they came back, when it was a lot safer in Japan, because Japan have handled COVID, one of the better countries that have handled COVID very well. I mean, no one's going to beat New Zealand in terms of that, because we all want to live in New Zealand now. But yeah, when they came back and you had the Tam Nakano and Julia feud that sort of transpired into the feud over the Wonder of Stardom title, that was some great work. And I think both of those wrestlers are my two favorites in all of Stardom. So to see them go at it and really work well together was great to see. I think it's been my favorite feud from what I've seen of Stardom this year, and it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere like NXT or AEW go in for someone like Julia in the future. Yeah. I mean, Seddon and I were talking about this earlier. I don't know if it was on the show or when we were playing TW, but I think someone like Tam would probably fit the WWE build more, and I think Julia would probably fit the AEW mold more. Yeah. But they could go either way in the future. I mean, personally, I'd love to see them both stay with Stardom, at least for a little bit longer. But you never know, because especially with WWE, they have a way of completely destroying their foreign talent. I mean, they've done.
Once they allow them outside of NXT, they destroy them.
Yeah, exactly. Kyrie was woefully underutilized on the main roster, but she was great in NXT, as was Io, and of course Asuka being undefeated. But yeah, I love both Tam and Julia, and I think they're both amazing. So yeah, that's my other pleasure of the year. Can't wait to see what's on.
It is a great feud as well, and I think it is. It's not so easy to. I mean, it's not on UK TV. You either have to sign up for Stardom, don't you, or you can get some of the stuff on YouTube. But I think for like wrestling outside of the mainstream and smaller companies, I think they've done really excellent stuff with that.
Yeah, and I mean they even they've taken it outside the ring as well in terms of their feud, because there was that one where. What is it? Tam was doing a photo shoot because she is what the Japanese call an idol. She's a model and she's a performer. Before she even thought about wrestling, and she was doing a photo shoot, and Julia came onto the set of the photo shoot and just started screaming in her face and slapping her about, and then they just broke out in like an all-out brawl. That was kind of like the more sort of soap opera element to it, but it's cool to see that they're trying different things, because a lot of the indie promotions, their storytelling is limited by the fact that they aren't 24 hours a day under the microscope, and a lot of the matches are literally just plucked out of thin air in a lot of cases. But it's really cool to see that they're actually having, actually thinking a bit more creatively, and actually having a writing team that want to try and figure out where they want to go, but at the meantime have a lot of fun with it as well, if you know what I mean.
Thank you, Midge, for that pick. Who's next? Mid, what's your moment of wrestling pleasure? Do you have any?
Yeah, probably Kenny Omega.
Fair shout.
Has been mine for the whole year. He's been flying under the radar as much as he can in AEW because of Moxley being the champion and having all the attention all year. But he's had my favourite match of the year, which was Kenny and Hangman versus the Young Bucks. Mm-hmm. That's my favourite wrestling match of the year so far. Obviously, it's not over yet, but anything's going to beat that.
Well, don't forget the Firefly Inferno match on Sunday.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that one though. Actually, I like those kind of matches. Yeah. And now he's champion. As you can see, he's creating such a buzz in the whole wrestling industry that obviously is just going to carry on. I wouldn't be surprised because Wrestle Kingdom's soon. I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn up at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. I'm expecting him to turn up there.
It was really good. Sorry, just to butt in again. It was a really good timing in terms of the booking decision to take the title off of Mox. Because they want to have that buzz surrounding the company, not just Kenny, but the company. Going into the new year, they need a stronger start as possible when it comes to going into 2021, and they booked that sort of timing wise. They booked that to perfection, I think.
I think you're spot on though, Mid, with the Omega Page match being match. And this being match of the year. And again, I think we've always known the boy can put on great matches, but I think this year, probably even under the radar, I'd say he's not been the marquee person up to this point, but he's just been putting in great match after great match, and great long-term storytelling, because like some of this stuff isn't going to pay off probably even this year. Some of it will pay off well. See, some of it won't even pay off in 2021. You said about we don't know when they'll pull the trigger on Page beating him, but that build-up of making that one-winged angel unkick-outable, it's just that long-term thinking about it, and I think it's because he's got a great wrestling mind.
Yeah, well, I think at the end of Wrestle Kingdom, whoever ends up world champion, I think Kenny's going to be the last thing on the show as like a video package to whoever wins the title. So we'll see. We obviously don't know about that, but I'd love to see that as the ending of Wrestle Kingdom this year,
because that as well would not only create that link between New Japan and AEW to make that link even stronger, but it would also put that extra layer of respect and prestige onto the AEW world title, because yes, obviously it's the biggest title in the company, but it's still not the most recognizable or the most prestigious title in the business. But having your world champion come out at the end of the biggest pay-per-view of the year on a different continent, that's huge. That is absolutely huge. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to see it as well. I mean, you kind of saw that sort of aspect when Jericho, made that video package appearance, but sort of using that, but in the context of having a world champion sort of make that appearance and reappearance back in a company that he hasn't been in since the birth of AEW. That would be massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah, and also he's a legend in New Japan anyway, so he's got loads of pre-existing feuds ready-made for him. So,
okay, thank you, Mid, for that. Next up, Seddon. Continue the
positivity, mate.
Continue the positivity.
I'm going to sneak in my honourable mentions first, because you mentioned it earlier, Stu. Wrestle House was a real highlight for me this year, because again, something very different. I know I'm going to get panned for the next bit, but the dinner debonair, just fucking magic for me. Absolutely loved it. And what was my award winner for a very, very long time, which was Trent's mum, which Midge has gone on and defaced on the answer sheet to Mid's mum now. But no, when I really thought about it, I really kind of went back for the year, because I've been shitting on WWE, and the real highlight for me and the best moment of the year for me was the Firefly Funhouse match at WrestleMania. It was something, and probably why I can't totally poo on WrestleMania, and bizarrely enough, only probably happened in the way that it happened because of my wrestling pain moment of the year. It's probably only them giving Goldberg the title that probably led to this, but I just thought it was amazing. I thought it was amazing at the time, and it's the wrestling match, if you want to call it that, but it's the wrestling moment that stayed with me. And I was talking earlier about the things that I hate about WWE and the things I hate about wrestling, the sort of the short-term booking, they're just getting people back for a pop. And this is what I love about wrestling, and I guess specifically about what Bray Wyatt and the Fiend character has done, and what they seem to allow him to do, which is play off of storylines from years ago. So this was built off of what probably in the year that it happened would have been my worst moment of the year, is when Cena buried him at Mania, but years later they've come back to it, and from a storytelling perspective I just thought it was fantastic. And I don't like John Cena, I never have. I don't think he's very good, I don't think he's very talented, and I think he was pushed down people's throats the Vince McMahon way, but I do have a lot of respect for him allowing so many shots to be taken at him. I mean, in effect, pretty much the whole match just pointed out what a cunt he'd been all these years, which is what I knew. But finally, they actually said it out loud, and yeah, it was great, and it's something that I don't think you will see very often in wrestling. And were there better matches? Yeah, there were some fantastic matches this year, but it just stood out as a total package for me as something different, interesting, and something that I don't think we'll see again to that level for a good few years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Seddon. Let's wrap things up with our... Oh, actually, I'll just round up our picks. So I went with NWA Power as my award for Wrestling Pleasure, Dusty Rhodes Award. Mideon went with, well, simply Kenny Omega. Seddon went with the Firefly Funhouse. And Midge has gone with Alexa Bliss joining the Funhouse and the Nakano. Forgive me, how do I spell that? That's
Julia.
Julia feud over the Wonder of Stardom title. So thank you, boys, for that. And like I say, we'll round things off with the listener submissions. A personal one from Ben I say he's of Asia Mania. He hasn't done Asia Mania for years. He's on the Bamcast. I should say that. Sorry, Ben. Go listen to the Bamcast, by the way. It's a good show. They review bad movies. It's funny.
So do we. Unintentionally on our part.
Yeah, indeed. Ben has entered the wrestling ring himself. Excuse me. So his highlight is his first ever pro wrestling match.
Awesome.
I think I'm sure he posted some stuff on our Discord that isn't particularly active at the moment. But if you do want to go check out some of his footage, there is some on there. I know that. Sorry, I need to clear my throat.
Very emotional about his wrestling style, weren't you?
Yeah, fair play to you. And lastly, Chris Lacey, his kind of echoing what you said, Seddon, but he's gone with the other cinematic match from WrestleMania, and that was The Undertaker versus AJ Styles. So it's his moment of pleasure from this year. So another kind of fan of that cinematic style, I should say. So there we go. There are our wrestling highlights and lowlights from 2020. We shall wrap this show up, show one of the 2020 Stiffie Awards. Join us tomorrow, where we will be looking at the topic of discussion will be new to us, which is our top 3 pieces of media that are new to us, quite simply. You know, those films, TV shows, whatever, that may not have been released in 2020, but we've discovered in 2020 for the first time. So that's going to be quite an interesting category. So thank you for joining us today, and we will speak to you tomorrow. Goodbye.